Most people assume a heart attack always gives you a warning. Sharp pain in the chest, a numb left arm, someone collapsing suddenly. That's the version we see on screen, the version everyone expects. But once you pass 60, the most dangerous cardiac episodes are frequently the quiet ones. The kind that build up slowly while you're fast asleep. No signal, no chance to call anyone, no second try. And here's the part that catches almost every patient off guard when I explain it to them afterward. These episodes are usually set off by something completely mundane. Something so ordinary you'd never suspect it. Something you did just before turning off the lamp. I've spent over 2 decades opening chests, repairing damaged arteries, and literally holding hearts in my hands. In that same span of time, I've watched the exact same avoidable patterns repeat themselves in patient after patient who had no clue what their nightly routine was doing to them. Tonight, I want to walk you through 5 of those patterns. 5 ordinary habits that are quietly stacking the odds against you every night. And then I'll walk you through how to diffuse each one evening habit at a time. Keep reading, because what follows might be the most useful few minutes you spend all year. Here's something most people never think about. Your cardiovascular system doesn't shut off when you go to sleep, it just changes mode. In a healthy body, nighttime is when blood pressure naturally drops, typically 10 to 20% lower than daytime numbers. The heart rate eases, the arteries loosen up. It's essentially a nightly reset, a maintenance cycle your body has been running your entire life. But past age 60, that system starts to lose reliability. Vessels stiffen, the regulation of blood pressure becomes sloppier, and hormonal signals that once safeguarded the heart overnight start to fade. The room for error shrinks dramatically. Picture it this way. During the day, your cardiovascular system has backup options. It can adjust and compensate. At night, a lot of those safety nets are effectively switched off. Your body is running on a skeleton crew. That's precisely why nighttime is so different once you're past 60, and why the window between midnight and 6 a.m. carries the highest odds of a heart attack or stroke for older adults. Not rush hour, not the afternoon, but the quiet hours, when nobody's watching except your own habits. And here's the piece that changes the whole picture. What unfolds during those risky hours is largely decided by what you did earlier that evening, what you ate for dinner, whether you took your medication on schedule, how warm or cold your bedroom was, choices that feel completely routine in the moment. That's exactly what we're going to dig into, starting with the habit that surprises my patients more than any other. Think about what time you ate dinner last night, and what was actually on the plate. I ask every single patient that question. What surprises me is how many people over 60 tell me they eat around 8, 9, sometimes even 10 at night. A full plate, pasta or rice, some meat, maybe something fried, then straight to the couch and into bed an hour or 2 later. I get why it happens. Busy schedules, family obligations, habits formed over decades. But from a cardiac standpoint, that pattern is quietly wearing down the heart. A large meal eaten late at night is one of the most overlooked stressors your heart deals with. Here's the mechanism. A big meal forces your digestive system to demand a huge surge in blood flow. Your heart has to work harder to keep up. Blood pressure climbs. Triglycerides, the fat particles floating in your bloodstream, spike sharply within 2 to 4 hours of eating. Now layer sleep on top of that. Your body expects the evening to be a wind-down period, not a full-scale cardiovascular scramble. Instead, your heart is stuck digesting a heavy dinner while also trying to shift into overnight recovery mode. And those 2 jobs pull against each other. For someone past 60 with even mild arterial stiffness, that tug-of-war can carry real consequences. Research consistently ties eating within 2 to 3 hours of bedtime to higher nighttime blood pressure, more acid reflux, which can mimic or even provoke cardiac symptoms, and a greater chance of a cardiac event during sleep. The fix isn't complicated. Try to wrap up your main meal by 6 or 7 p.m. whenever you can. If dinner has to happen later, keep it light. Lean protein and vegetables rather than something heavy and greasy. Does that dinner pattern sound familiar? You'd be amazed how many people say yes without ever connecting it to their heart. Now here's where I need your full attention, because this is where a lot of preventable harm happens. In my own experience, if you're over 60 and on blood pressure medication, and more than 60% of people that age are, when you take that pill matters far more than most doctors ever explain. Blood pressure usually follows a rhythm through the day. It rises in the morning, peaks in the afternoon, and dips at night, but a large share of people over 60, particularly those with hypertension, never get that normal overnight dip. Their pressure either stays high or actually climbs during the early morning hours. This is called nocturnal hypertension, and hardly anyone has heard of it, yet it's more dangerous than ordinary daytime high blood pressure. While you're asleep, your artery walls aren't braced for sudden pressure surges. A spike at 3 a.m. hits your arteries very differently than the same spike at 3 p.m. It's more likely to crack a fragile plaque inside a coronary artery, more likely to trigger a clot, more likely to land someone on my operating table. If you only take your blood pressure pill in the morning, it may have worn off exactly when your body needs it most. If you skip it entirely, you could be leaving yourself unguarded during the riskiest hours of the night. So what's the move? Bring up medication timing directly with your doctor. Ask if switching your blood pressure medication to the evening makes sense for you. That conversation takes 2 minutes and could genuinely be life-saving. There's solid research behind this, including the Hygia chronotherapy trial, showing that evening dosing of blood pressure medication can meaningfully cut cardiovascular risk overnight. That's not a small tweak. It's a conversation that could save your life. Never assume timing is irrelevant. In cardiology, timing changes everything. And yet most people over 60 have never once discussed this with their doctor. Now picture someone in your life who snores. Maybe your spouse, maybe a parent, maybe it's you. That loud, uneven rumbling through the night. Most people brush it off as a minor annoyance, a running joke, something worth an elbow in the ribs. I treat it as a red flag for heart disease until proven otherwise. And after 2 decades in this field, I mean that literally. Sleep apnea is one of the most under-recognized conditions I encounter in patients over 60. More than 30% of older adults have some form of it, yet the overwhelming majority are never diagnosed or treated. They have no idea what it's doing to their heart every single night. Here's what actually happens during an episode. Breathing stops for 10 seconds, 40 seconds, sometimes longer, potentially dozens of times an hour. Each time, blood oxygen plummets. The brain senses an emergency and fires off a stress response. Adrenaline surges, cortisol rises, heart rate jumps, blood pressure spikes. The heart gets jolted awake while the rest of the body stays asleep, night after night, year after year. Now multiply that by 30, 40, even 50 times in a single night. The toll on the cardiovascular system is anything but minor. Sleep apnea triples the risk of heart attack. That number alone should give anyone pause. It's also closely tied to irregular heart rhythms like atrial fibrillation, which sharply raises stroke risk, and it speeds up the stiffening and thickening of arterial walls. Because it all happens while you're unconscious, most people never realize anything is wrong until a major cardiac event forces the issue. The warning signs aren't always obvious. Loud snoring is one, but keep an eye out for morning headaches, exhaustion despite a full night's sleep, frequent nighttime bathroom trips, waking with a dry mouth, or jolting awake, gasping, or choking. If any of that sounds familiar, ask your doctor about a sleep study. Here's what I tell patients directly. If you snore heavily, you're over 60, and you have any history of heart disease or stroke, getting checked for sleep apnea isn't optional. It's a core part of your cardiac care. The treatment, usually a CPAP machine, isn't exciting, I know that, but the evidence behind it is impressive. Patients who stick with CPAP see measurable drops in blood pressure, fewer episodes of atrial fibrillation, and meaningfully lower cardiovascular risk overall. One device, one habit, enormous protection. Does anyone in your house snore? Has anyone ever mentioned you stop breathing in your sleep? Sit with that question before moving on. Let's talk about another habit driven by completely reasonable logic, which is exactly why it slips under the radar. Plenty of people over 60 deliberately cut back on fluids in the evening. The logic makes sense. Nobody wants to wake up at 2 a.m. to use the bathroom. Broken sleep is exhausting, and getting up at night raises the risk of a fall. So they stop drinking after dinner, sometimes as early as 4 p.m. I understand the reasoning completely, but from a cardiovascular angle, going to bed even mildly dehydrated is a real risk factor that almost nobody talks about. When you're dehydrated, your blood thickens. It doesn't move through your vessels as smoothly. For a younger cardiovascular system, that's usually a minor inconvenience. For someone past 60 with stiffened arteries and existing plaque, it's a completely different story. Thicker blood moves more sluggishly through arteries that are already narrowed, and it's more prone to forming dangerous clots. Here's the timing issue almost nobody considers. During sleep, your heart rate naturally drops and circulation slows down. Combine that slower circulation with thicker blood in a body that's lying still for 7 or 8 hours, moving through arteries that may already be partly blocked, and you get one of the reasons heart attacks and strokes cluster in the early morning hours. Fortunately, the fix is simple. Drink 1 full glass of water before bed. Nothing dramatic. About 8 ounces is plenty. That's enough to keep your blood from thickening unnecessarily overnight. Keep a second glass on your nightstand for if you wake up thirsty. If you do wake up around 2 a.m. feeling parched, your body is asking for something your heart needs too. You don't have to trade good sleep for heart protection. You can have both. Here's another habit that catches almost every patient off guard, because it sounds almost too basic to matter. What's the temperature in your bedroom at night? Most people have never thought about that question in terms of heart health. They think comfort, they think personal taste, but your cardiovascular system has a specific range where it performs best, and outside that range, your heart works harder than it needs to without you noticing. Start with a room that's too warm. Once the temperature climbs past roughly 22 degrees Celsius or 72 degrees Fahrenheit, your body has to keep working all night to shed excess heat. Blood vessels widen, heart rate stays elevated, you sweat more, which brings back the dehydration issue we already covered. Just as importantly, sleep quality drops. You spend less time in deep restorative sleep, the stage where your heart does its most important overnight repair work. Now flip it around. A room that's genuinely too cold, below about 16 or 17 degrees Celsius, creates a different kind of strain. Cold triggers vasoconstriction. Blood vessels tighten to conserve core body heat. As they narrow, blood pressure rises and the heart has to pump against more resistance. For someone already dealing with coronary artery disease or hypertension, that nighttime pressure increase is not trivial. The sweet spot for both sleep quality and heart protection sits between 18 and 22 degrees Celsius, or 65 to 72 degrees Fahrenheit. Inside that range, your body stays thermally neutral. Vessels stay relaxed, heart rate stays low and steady, and sleep stays deep and restorative. One thermostat adjustment, real protection. Everything covered so far might sound like a growing list of worries, but look at it differently. Put these 5 habits together, and what you get is a practical evening routine for protecting your heart. Think of it as your heart's nightly safety checklist, and it fits easily into ordinary life without any dramatic overhaul. Here's roughly what it looks like. Somewhere between 6 and 7 p.m., eat your main meal. Lean protein, vegetables, a moderate portion of carbs if you want them, not a massive spread, and not skipping dinner either, just a balanced plate at a reasonable hour. That gives your heart 3 to 4 hours to finish digesting before you lie down. Around 7 p.m., focus on water and medication. If you and your doctor haven't specifically discussed the timing of your blood pressure medication, treat this as your cue to bring it up, since evening dosing may offer meaningfully better protection for many people. Take that conversation seriously. Between 8 and 9 p.m., start winding down for the night. Take a relaxed walk, read something calm, have an easy conversation with someone. This is also the point where you should put screens away, especially phones, since that bright light suppresses melatonin and keeps your nervous system wired far longer than it should be right before sleep. By 9 p.m., get your bedroom ready. Adjust the thermostat, crack a window for a couple of minutes if you need to, set a glass of water on the nightstand. None of this takes more than a minute and a half, but it genuinely matters. By 10 p.m., you should be lying down. And here's one last detail that costs nothing at all. If you snore, or someone has ever mentioned that you stop breathing while asleep, try sleeping on your side instead of on your back. Lying on your back can make airway blockage considerably worse. Simply switching positions can noticeably cut down on sleep apnea episodes while you sort out a proper medical evaluation. Dinner wrapped up by 7, water and medication around 7, a quiet evening until 9, bedroom set up by 9, lights out by 10, sleeping on your side. The question was never whether this routine actually works. The science is clear that it does. The real question is whether you'll actually stick to it, and that's something only you can decide. Let me speak to you plainly for a second. Not as someone making a video, but as a surgeon. I've stood at an operating table at 3 a.m. holding a heart that stopped beating because a clot formed overnight inside a narrowed coronary artery. I've talked with families sitting in waiting rooms at dawn. Families who had no idea anything was wrong when they said goodnight to their loved one just hours earlier. I've gone through autopsy reports on people who, a week before, were making plans for their grandchild's birthday party, and case after case, the contributing factors were never mysterious. A late dinner, a skipped blood pressure pill, a bedroom that ran too warm, a body that had quietly gone dehydrated, an airway that had been silently collapsing for years while everyone assumed the snoring was harmless. None of these are rare or unusual risk factors. They're just the ordinary background noise of countless evenings. But that background noise, repeated night after night for years, can eventually add up to the heart attack nobody saw coming because nobody knew what to look for. Here's the biggest lesson 20 plus years in the operating room has taught me. Most of the hearts I've had to repair didn't fail because of bad luck. They failed because of missing information. Information the patient was simply never given. Now you have it. The only question left is what you do with it tonight. Not next week. Not at your next checkup. Tonight. So let's pull it all together. 5 habits, 5 fixes. I want you walking away from this with a clear plan, not just a vague worry. First, finish your main meal by 6 or 7 in the evening. Nothing extreme, just a sensible dinner at a sensible hour. Second, talk to your doctor specifically about when you take your blood pressure medication. Ask directly whether taking it at night would suit you better. That one conversation could turn out to be the most important medical talk you have all year. Third, if you snore, wake up feeling drained, or someone has noticed you stop breathing at night, get checked for sleep apnea. Past 60, that's not optional. It's a core piece of protecting your heart. Fourth, drink a glass of water before bed and keep another one within reach on the nightstand. Don't let your blood thicken overnight just to dodge a bathroom trip. Fifth, keep your bedroom somewhere between 18 and 22 degrees Celsius or 65 to 72 degrees Fahrenheit. That one small adjustment protects your blood vessels and costs nothing. I'd genuinely like to know, and I'd love to hear it in the comments, which of these 5 habits do you recognize in your own routine? My guess is at least 2 or 3 will ring a bell, and if they do, you're in good company. Most of my patients see themselves somewhere on this list. The only difference now is that you know what to do about it. If this was useful to you, pass it along. There's almost certainly someone in your life, a spouse, a sibling, a close friend, someone over 60, who's never once connected their nightly habits to their heart health. Send this to them. Take care of your heart. It's been working for you every single minute of every day and night of your life. Give it what it needs to keep going for many more years. One last note. Everything shared here is general medical information drawn from current cardiovascular research and my own clinical experience. It isn't a replacement for personalized medical care. Before adjusting any medication schedule, especially the timing of blood pressure medication, please check with your own doctor first. That's not just a legal formality, it's a sincere piece of advice, and I genuinely hope to still have you watching 10 years from now. Good night, sleep well, and starting tonight, take good care of yourself.